I'm just going to say a couple things right here to make sure that we don't have any problems. Alright, it appears that the audio is coming through anyway, so I'm going to go and fix that. We are finally live. I'm going to be joined today by Mr. Refooge and what you may know as freaking Janine from one of my videos. We are finally live. I'm going to be joined here, so let me go ahead and shut that down real fast. That's, and what you may know as freaking... There we go. Alright, Mr. Refooge, it'd be really, really good for you to go ahead and introduce yourself. Well, what are you doing right now? You're in school, right? I do have links on my videos. They should be in every descriptions area. He did a lot of the graphical work that I use, and okay, I'm getting a little message. We're having growing pains here, little issues as far as technical stuff goes. We have to go ahead and do a little bit of a restart. I'm checking on a couple things as far as audio goes, and we'll go ahead and continue in just a moment. Hey, Mr. Refooge, if you would go ahead and just go ahead and talk a little bit for me so I can go ahead and get this nailed down real fast. Make sure you guys come through just fine. Oh yeah. Tell me how much you love Hillary Clinton. Okay, that's pretty much it, huh? Okay, yeah, we're definitely having issues here, so we're going to add an audio source real fast. That wouldn't make any sense. That's fairly true. Okay. Well, I went ahead and added a little bit here, and we seem to be... I thought I had this fixed. I thought I had this going. Okay. Tell you what I'm going to do real fast here, guys, is we're going to go back to waiting. I'm going to shut the stream down for just a moment. We're going to have to bring everything back up. Alright, let's go ahead and try this again. Little growing pains, little problems with technical side. Alright. I'm double checking, making sure our audio output is good, and I don't even see it. Why don't you guys go and say something for me real fast?
How's it going, Mr. Refooge here?
Okay, looks pretty good. Alright, we're gonna start all over. Brand new. Everything else didn't happen. I'll go ahead and purge it. So, Jack here, and we're going to be doing our first real live stream. I'm being joined today by freaking Janine, who you may remember from some of my videos. She's been in a little bit of it and has a chance to introduce herself. And Mr. Refooge, who is my artist. Freaking Janine, why don't you go ahead and start off with a little bit of introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm living in Denver. I am 28. I'm working on a master's degree currently, set to graduate in December of this year, and that's in psychology. Though I got my undergrad in real science, I promise. It's micro and molecular biology.
Oh, okay. She's sitting right next to me, so we're having a little mic bleed through. We'll go ahead and get that fixed real fast. Mr. Refooge, if you would go ahead and give us a little bit of background on you.
All right. Unfortunately, I live in Denver as well, and even more. So I go to the Art Institute of Colorado here, and as Jack stated, I am his artist.
And you can go ahead and see in some of my videos in the description section, link to his website. He does sell art and things like that. Shameless plug for you. The point here, we've got a little bit of a list of things that we want to go ahead and go over, some fun stuff. Today, I've been pissing people off on Twitter. I've been enjoying the hell out of it. I've been trying to make my channel grow. It seems like a great way to do it. And I'm not saying anything that isn't true. I'm just having fun. But these people are nuts.
Oh, facts drive them insane.
That's to put it very, very mildly. Some of the things that showed up today are fun. The first one we're going to be showing is a satire. You remember that? When I first saw it, I didn't think it was, because that's how believable not only this woman is, but I guess you're just going to have to see it for yourself. This encapsulates today in the news in its entirety. With the progressive left's reaction to Donald Trump existing, let alone having anything to do whatsoever with Vladimir Putin at a meeting of world leaders. Wait, what was he supposed to do? Just start throwing eggs at him? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this guy up. Let's go ahead and get her playing. Again, remember, this is satire. This isn't real. She does a lot of videos like this. I'm going to go ahead and throw her address out there in a minute, but let's watch a little bit of it together. I love that when she does the "not my president" thing. You know,
Oh, that's hilarious.
well, that's what they've been doing, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Oh, her acting is completely believable. There's real videos of these people acting far more outrageous than she is in that.
Well, I gotta give her props. I would have broken up long before laughing.
She does it, like I said, she does a bunch of videos in this. She calls herself Conservative Mama, and it's a website by the same name, conservativemama.com. It's hilarious. Yeah, whether or not you agree with her, you got to admit this woman deserves some sort of daytime television award at the very least. I'm going to go ahead and let it play a little more. Not my president.
Not my president.
Taps him on the back.
It's clearly enough to have him impeached.
I'm sorry. I got to pause it for a second. I can't continue. It's so good. It's so well done. And that is, again, that encapsulates her entire argument as far as the Russian thing goes. We have zero evidence, that there has been any collusion of any kind. They keep saying, well, Trump said there was, and then he's backtracking, he's flip-flopping back and forth. He never said that. They're taking things wildly out of context with intent. He said, like when he said, why didn't Obama do something about it if he found out back in 2016, in the middle of the year? He's not saying it did happen. He's saying, if you believed it, if you had facts, if you had real evidence, why didn't you do anything? Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. And the timing of it is just laughable, actually. That anyone on the left has the gall to claim collusion when Obama knew for a long time before, and not only didn't make it public, but he didn't do anything about it until it was politically expedient to do so.
They didn't really. He seems. You remember we had this discussion in December, freaking Janine and I, and my attitude with it was, I think Obama was done. I think he wanted out. I didn't think he wouldn't have to deal with it anymore, and I think he felt like he was being dragged into it because of Hillary and a lot of money and a lot of special interest. The presidency ages every president hard. Okay, there isn't a single example of a president living, especially 8 years, 2 terms, not becoming something completely different as far as his appearance goes. From Abraham Lincoln, you look at the earliest pictures to the latest ones, to George W. Bush and Obama, for that matter. And look, I'm going to be a little bit cruel. Trump does not look that great. He is 70. I recognize that. He doesn't look that great. I can't imagine what he's going to look like if he gets 2 terms, 8 years.
He'll be bald. Even with that fantastic coif, he will go bald.
I think some people think he already is bald and he's hiding it.
It's a secret.
I think he's got a slightly receding hairline, and he's been working through it. Yeah, we're going off on a tangent here. I'm gonna play a little bit more of this, and we'll move on to the next thing. She may as well be a journalist.
Because she's so good at finding this stuff out. She's just so intuitive.
Blinking at each other. Okay, I can't continue. The Morse code thing gets me. I've watched this thing obviously a couple times before coming in here. The Morse code thing gets me every fucking time. they're communicating. It's eyelash communication.
It's clear as day that they're doing that.
Again, it's satire for anyone coming in watching. It's not real, but it's funny. And just for a little bit of fun here, I got to throw this up. We can see clearly Trump and Putin. Trump bribing Vladimir Putin. You got the special handshake. Okay. We got the money going into the pocket.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that was at least $10,000. And as we know in Russia, That's their entire yearly GDP. Let's not go ahead and let that play. This next one is George Lopez. George Lopez is known as a comedic actor as well as a stand-up comedian.
Oh, man.
That's a little questionable. I would just leave it at actor.
Yeah.
Well, he is a stand-up comedian.
He's a stand-up.
Well, some people find him funny. Well, his job is comedian. Yeah, I know you guys don't think he's funny, and this right here that we're going to go over, I don't think it's funny either, and neither did George Lopez. There's a video from TMZ. We're not going to really play the whole thing, but he is interviewed kind of ad hoc on getting out of a car, and he makes a statement that if, see it on the screen, if we want to make the streets safer, we don't need to deport the illegals, we need to deport the police. Because as we well know, the police are responsible for the majority of the crime in this country. That's their job, that's what they do.
Well, according to Black Lives Matter.
I don't have anything positive to say. Yeah, he was entirely serious. You know, here's the little thing here. I'm having trouble seeing it myself. There we go. That we should go ahead and just get rid of him. He posted this on Twitter, I think it was today.
Levy looks so pensive here, as if it's really a thinker.
Oh yeah, he is. What's the word I'm looking for? Brooding. He's a very brooding man. You can tell with the glasses. The late 80s, early 90s women's glasses that he's wearing. He is a deep man. Look, I'm not speaking for you two, obviously. My attitude is simple. If you are in the country illegally, you are already a criminal. That is the default stance. What you are doing is a crime.
I fully agree.
It's a felony offense.
Yeah.
What's more is they commit an incredible amount of crime. We don't have the stats here, but we were looking not all that long ago at border crime statistics, and especially when it comes to the Department of Justice, a number of cases including not illegals, but not for deportation hearings. In other words, anywhere from misdemeanors to felony offenses that involve illegals. And it is outrageous. They commit an incredible amount of crime. And that's just the crime that's overt. That's the kind of thing you see on the street. Assault, shootings, things like that. That's not including, obviously, the crime of just being here illegally, right?
Yep.
But the crimes of putting taxes through illegally, fraudulent taxation, basic housing violations and theft, driving without insurance, you name it, there are countless violations. And yes, it does matter.
It absolutely does. I don't understand how anyone thinks that someone who has so flagrantly little respect for our law as to walk in here illegally like that would at all, under any circumstances, have respect for it. Of course they're going to be more prone to creating criminal situations because they came in on a criminal situation. It's an absurdity. It's completely just, I can't, it's unbelievable.
I partially agree with that. When somebody's in a circumstance where they are considered unwelcome as far as the law goes of another nation, you know, entering it illegally, they are more likely to commit crime in order to ironically stay under the radar, steal and things like that, especially because the socioeconomic situation of your average Mexican is a joke. If the United States dollar went to the level of the peso in the course of a month, it would destroy our entire country, just as it's destroyed theirs. But it's more than that. It is more than that when it comes to the illegals. They have an entitlement issue. They have an expectation issue. Look at La Raza, who, by the way, and I'd have to look this up, but apparently they're trying to rebrand themselves with a slightly different name as some sort of not terrorist organization. I'm sorry, La Raza is a terrorist organization. They've assaulted people. They have tried to shut down peaceful gatherings and protest. They have tried to tear down the American flag in school districts and on public grounds otherwise. They're a terrorist organization hell-bent They're a foreign invasion force on American soil.
They're a brown supremacy movement, very much so. Just like any other supremacy movement, it inevitably becomes very unpredictably violent.
I think it's very predictable. You have to disagree with you.
Okay, at their point, it's predictably violent. Just
Ms. Refooge, why don't you go ahead and throw something in here? I got to mute my mic for 1 second.
Oh, as you two well know, my neighborhood has quite a few of them. Basically a little Mexico here. And they proudly tell their children that no, we don't celebrate the 4th of July.
How do you know that? Let's start there before I challenge you any more on that.
Oh, well, my daughter plays with them. Obviously, I'm not going to tell her no, she can't go out there and play with the kids. And she asked them what they're doing for 4th of July, you know, setting off fireworks, participating, and no. She had several of them telling them, no, we don't celebrate that. Our parents said we don't.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sure, was it Cinco de Mayo? You know, obviously we've already passed May. Were they celebrating that at all? Bumping music, you know, the usual stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure at some point I had to call the police. That's another thing is the just outright disrespect, like you even said, the entitlement. I'm just going to sit here, working on my car, blocking most of the street, blaring incredibly loud music.
well, they're creating cultural diasporas. A good immigrant, someone who comes here legally, someone that we want, someone who's following the laws and wants to be here and recognizes that they're here because the place they left wasn't as good, or they wouldn't have come. Those people integrate. The people that come here illegally create diasporas, which immediately divides communities up, creates resentment, creates frustration, and creates crime. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we can't learn from the lessons of the past. There isn't a single country that has not had a major cultural invasion, either by their own doing or because of war, you name it, that has managed to survive it. Not one. And we, the United States, I side with the Christians in this country before I continue, so don't freak out on me. But we were not founded on Christian beliefs. We were founded very much on secular beliefs. Primarily, the foundation that we were based off of, our governmental system, the base idea of our laws, was from Rome. Rome died very heavily because of massive cultural shift, in part because of their ever-expanding territories. I know it's more complicated than that. I know the history of Rome, so you don't need to tweet at me or anything like that. You're an idiot. Well, I know the history, but this was a part of the problem. This is what led to the rise of Caesar and massive power grabs, the destruction, ultimately, of the Senate, and we're going to be saying the same thing.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
While certainly, of course, we have a huge amount of our foundation in Rome, I would argue that a greater influence comes from the Enlightenment philosophers like John Locke.
I
Now,
was talking about the structure itself,
okay, that's fair.
not the minutiae, not the details, especially when it comes to the concepts of freedom.
That's not the minutiae. That's like the whole thing.
Okay, well, our legal system and being a republic of many states, this was all founded by Rome. Okay, the original name for Washington, D.C. was Rome. It wasn't the District of Columbia, which apparently somebody pulled out of their butt one day. I know the history behind it. It's not the point. It's just like, wow, we have this great foundation. And you go and look at it. What do we have? We've got something almost shaped like a pentagram. And I'm not talking about the Pentagon. I'm talking about the roads of the city. We've got an obelisk. You know, these are not normal for a lot of Western civilization, but they certainly, at least more modern Western civilization, but certainly for Rome and a lot of our older history. At any rate, getting off a little bit of tangent once again here. I'm sorry, guys. I have a tendency to do this, and I really do try to stay on topic. Fuck you, George Lopez. Just fuck you. Fuck those glasses. Look, even if he said something positive about Trump, I'd be making fun of those glasses. Those are hideous, and you are a bad human being for wearing them.
How about this, George Lopez? How about you go back down to the countries, to the people who you claim to be defending, and get rid of your security detail, get rid of some of your money, and live outside of the walls, which have concrete and broken glass for the protection of the rich at the top. How about that?
So kind of pull a George Clooney, but also do the opposite, but then do it and then do the opposite. He left the country because he wanted to be amongst those people, but now he's coming back because he fears safety.
Well, yes, but
It was a joke. It
he
was a
wouldn't
joke.
get to come back.
No, if he's an American citizen, unless he renounces his citizenship,
No, I
I'm
mean
gonna
they
back
kill
up.
him.
Oh, I don't know about that. They probably like him then. I don't know. Final note on this. We're going to move on to the next one. Just final note. This isn't about race. This has nothing to do with race. Mexico, leftist. They're not a race. Mexico is not a race. Mexican isn't race. American is not race. These are nationalities. Nationalities come with languages, borders, and culture. And we don't like the fact that we are somehow obligated because of a geographical proximity to give people something. What sense is it? Oh, you happen to be closer. We don't do this with Canadians. I just don't get it. But they're not a race. This has nothing to do with people of Latino descent. Let's go move on to the next one. This one, Trump learned of son's meeting with... Okay, so what we're looking at here, a little bit of a big news break today, is Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., had apparently met last year for 20 minutes with a couple of individuals that have been tied to the Kremlin. I don't have a lot of detail on that. It seemed like it was more of an impromptu meeting. They kind of railroaded him to come and talk to him. What they were trying to do is get some laws changed specifically surrounding some politicians and some bankers that had really, really angered the United States with some funny money and some fraudulent schemes, and it was specifically against them. And nothing came out of this meeting. Nothing. The progressives, the mainstream media, the Democrats, they're going absolutely ape over this, as if it's evidence of collusion because somebody saw a Russian... I drink vodka.
To be fair, it is the most concrete piece of evidence they've produced thus far.
I mean, it's obvious impeachment proof. I mean, come on.
Impeach Trump, hashtag.
Not my president.
He's no one's president. He's apparently the president of Alabama only. How many states, by the way?
45.
Was it that many?
Wait, what? No, I don't know.
How many states went red for the previous election? It was at least 37, if memory serves. I would have to look it up. One of the things that I don't think these people get is they are yelling and screaming at the majority of the states. They're telling them they're bad people, they're wrong, they're horrible, they shouldn't be here, they need to die in a fire, whatever. Fuck you.
Well, they've been doing that for years. It's no surprise. I mean, the term flyover country is used colloquially. If these people who live in the giant cities come to the middle of the country and interact, we get called quaint.
Well, the Denver area, not so much.
Well, no, but the
It's
other
an
places,
oasis.
like, oh my god. Well, that's how they see it. It really is. And the sad thing is, while Denver is a beautiful place, and I love living here in some ways, the population has changed drastically since the time that I grew up in a surrounding area. And the crime has skyrocketed. The roads are now clogged. The infrastructure cannot support this. And it just is, this is what happens when you invite more people than you can sustain.
Well, yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the pot, not just the sanctuary city status. Let's finish out this article, and maybe come back to the whole sanctuary thing, because it's on my mind. But I don't even know where to go with this. It just, the whole Twitterverse, all the mainstream media from ABC, as you can see right here, which is the website we have up, CNN, MSNBC. Oh, this is really, really bad. We got you now. I have a video on this, and you can go and check my channel for this. The Red Russian Menace. There has, at the time I made that video, it's been a couple months now, to now, there is still zero evidence of collusion.
Although, one point that I did hear in the news, excuse me, I have to try not to laugh, is that this opens them up to blackmail, even though it's now very public knowledge, and would be very hard to blackmail them on.
I hadn't heard that. That was like blackmailing. What was that? The stupid bastard's name, who's now super anti-Trump. You know, the talk show host. He was on there for a really long time.
Glenn Beck?
No. Late night. David Letterman.
Ah.
Yeah, he's growing this big bushy beard, and he looks a little bit like a crazy person. I'll see if I can look it up. But he's gone hardcore Trump, including he is now calling for essentially the impeachment of Trump. I believe what I saw on the Twitters was he needs to, we need to find a way to remove Trump, I believe are his words. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Well, fuck you, David Letterman. He is a duly elected president of a republic by the many states. The end. Okay? If Hillary would have won, and God help us all if Hillary would have won, really, really bad news. And I would have been looking for a good reason to get rid of her. I would have hoped something would happen, or maybe they'd just investigate the Clinton Foundation just a little tiny bit, which probably would be enough. But I still would have to support the seat. If the state said this is where they want to go, then this is what we have to do. You have to be an adult. And what we're dealing with is a whole bunch of monkey children in the news. They're insane.
Not my president.
Yeah, they're sitting there just asking him, you know, he apparently met with Boris and Natasha of Rocky and Bullwinkle, and that this is what happened. It's absolutely horrible that he would have even talked to him. You know how many videos and images, by the way, we have of Democrats, senators, representatives, House, meeting with the ambassador to Russia. I forget his name. It's a long name. Don't ask me to do Russian names. The Cyrillic language bothers me all day. But we didn't go, oh my God, they must be trying to collude with the Russians. Now, here's the funny thing about all this. We've already gone over the Donald Trump Jr. thing. I'm going to go into the next little quick article. This one is from 2017, but this actually took place in middle-ish 2016. Someone that was very familiar with Hillary Clinton had met with Ukrainian officials, and as we know, Russia very much has control over Ukraine, or at least a lot of influence in the region. Okay, and it went a lot further than what it went with Donald Trump Jr. In this case, what had occurred, we're going to go and pull it up here. Yeah, former Soviet bloc country, there you go. What happened in this case was this person was trying to dig up dirt on Trump in order to help Hillary win the election. I believe it was a she, handed off the information to the DNC and to Hillary Clinton, or to her campaign. And they were trying to use that information. It's probably where the whole prostitute urination thing came from. I don't think it was just Reddit. You know what I'm talking about?
Supposedly 4chan.
4chan? I wouldn't say. God, anything you look at on 4chan, you don't even take with a grain of salt. You just laugh. There is nothing on there you're ever going to be able to take seriously. They could write the most impressive dissertation on particle physics you've ever seen. The most brilliant thing. You still can't trust them.
Oh no, definitely not. They even prompt you on the website. You know, don't believe anything at all.
I didn't know that. I don't visit 4chan. You do?
I know. I don't. I have not been on that site for years. I frequented it a few times, and it's an awful, awful place.
Yeah, but at the same time, you got to give those guys credit. And of all the places, like /poll, how they can track down Shia like that.
Oh yeah, the infamous capture the flag game that stretched continents. Shia LaBeouf's back in prison, right?
Oh yeah, of course he is.
Or at least he was arrested. I don't know if he has yet been put in prison. I completely disagree, by the way, with putting Shia in prison. One, he's too much of a source of good fun. That man needs to be able to run wild and free, and we need to have a crew following him around with a camera at all times.
He's like a national resource.
Two, he needs help. He needs real psychiatric help. This isn't a joke. I mean, this man is actually damaged.
Well, this is the end result of what people have been colloquially calling cultural Marxism. This comes straight out of the Frankfurt School, and it almost inevitably leads to very nihilistic thinking, depression, neuroticism, and just anger and resentment at the society and the pointlessness of everything.
Absolutely.
It's a mental illness.
I think that puts him to a T. I don't think it's just that kind of influence. I think that movie Holes that he did, I think they actually made him dig all those holes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think that's what broke him. It's not just he's a child actor. He'd actually worked for it. I think somebody actually buried some pennies out there.
I think Pole broke him a little bit, too.
Yeah, but, and this is going to sound terrible, I hope that in the broken position that he now sits, he'll be able to pull his pieces back together and realize as he's reconstructing himself that perhaps there were a few fatal flaws there. Sometimes breaking is a blessing.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I don't even know where to go with any of this. Look, they've been doing exactly the same things, but Hillary good, Trump bad.
Even if they've done exactly the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so the next article we've got is really actually funny, especially to freaking Janine here and myself. As you all know, colleges have become a hotbed of crazy. As freaking Janine here just mentioned, the whole Frankfurt School, the Marxist and communist push into these schools has been going on for many decades now. It has reached what I would argue is a fevered pitch.
Well, I want a critical mass.
I agree. I don't know how else to put it. Critical mass, really?
Well, because up to this point they haven't had quite enough influence. It's actually been a fairly recent occurrence that the huge shift in bias has gone towards the left in scholastic settings. About the 90s, actually, is when it really started going. Before that, it was almost, well, it wasn't quite 50-50. It was always a little bit left for, the large part of our history. But in the 90s, the disparity between professors who had a leftist versus a more conservative political ideology was just, it became more than 10 to 1.
Remember the movie Legally Blonde, where one of the women at the law school she was going to was a hardcore feminist and taking those kinds of classes.
Oh, yeah.
And she was comedic relief because people would laugh at that. It had been going on for a really long time. Well, this particular article, which was put out today by CNN. Now, again, this is the politics section and the polling director. So this should be taken as news, and I'm sure we're going to find nothing but bias and opinion in here, especially just by the title. Party divisions extend to impression of higher education. Duh. Holy shit, duh. What is wrong with you? How can you not have already seen this? We had Milo go to Simply Speak, Milo Yiannopoulos, at Berkeley at the beginning of the year. And they set it on fire. I mean the campus. How dare someone come that we don't like and speak? I've gone to see. I actually saw Kevin Smith. The director and kind of actor, Silent Bob. I saw him speak. I hate that son of a bitch.
Really? Why?
I think he's obnoxious as all hell.
Oh.
He's not funny. He's not entertaining. His movies. He had some clever ideas, but they didn't really go there. I am actually a fan of Clerks. I'm a fan of Clerks, too. I'm a fan of Mallrats. But he started going a little, you know what I mean?
It's a bit off subject, but, his daughter was almost kidnapped. Someone pretended to be an Uber driver or some Lyft driver or something like that and tried to kidnap her, but afterwards he made her a cake that said, "Sorry, men suck." It's like, yeah, you're correct, Kevin. All men will kidnap women. You're right.
Oh, well, we're all rapists and murderers, don't you know?
I mean,
well, that's why you have to be untrained in university and taught how evil you are for being white men.
Well, that would explain the incredible rise of the ancient empires without that kind of education. I sure. Why not? Why not? We're just bad. As they go through this, as they say right here, I'm going to go and highlight it. they went through the Pew Research Center. Now, this should be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt. The Pew Research Center has gone left, and they did 6-7 years ago, arguably more. But this is what I've got. So this is where we're going to go with. So I don't want to hear any crap about, oh, you don't trust them, so don't quote them. Well, you know, not a lot of people are doing these kinds of polling data, so fuck you. 55% say colleges and universities have a positive effect on the way things are going in the country. Second to churches and religious organizations, which are 59% positive. But in the last 2 years, there's been have been sharp changes in the way Republicans view America's colleges and universities, while Democrats continue to see them as an overwhelming positive for 72%. Republicans have had a near reversal, 54% say positive. And there's a reason for that. Democrats are having their ideological side, their talking points, I won't even say taught. These students are being told what to think, not being taught how to think. It's a fundamental difference. So yes, people on the ideological side, the conservative side or the Republican side, are going to say, no, this is bad. But the reality is, these days, the conservatives are the more sane ones. Now, I'm not saying they should teach either. They should teach fact. This is the way this works. This is the information we have. If you have an opinion on it, that's all you. That's your problem. But that's not what they're being taught.
No, having come actually from, humanities and university, it's something that is inundated in our textbooks. It's in almost every assignment. The emphasis on social justice in the way that it's positive is so strong that if it were not for the fact that I have already examined this from the roots up and recognize it for what it is, I might have fallen for it too. If I were more younger, if I were more vulnerable, I could easily have fallen for this because it is high-level indoctrination.
Oh, I definitely fell into it a little bit. You basically taught to hate America.
Yeah, there's about a 10-year difference between myself and Mr. Refooge and freaking Janine here. And that means I entered high school, 93, okay? It was fundamentally different. We said the pledge every day. Now, unfortunately, when I entered high school, Clinton was elected, and there was already these grumblings of anti-American sentiment going on. I saw it for what it was, but I was taught very much the opposite, so I didn't go through that side of indoctrination. You could argue that my side was a little bit of indoctrination, right? Is that unfair to say?
No, I think that's fair.
It's patriotism through and through. But, I've gotten to the point all over again where it's no longer a cliche. It's time to wave the stars and stripes.
Oh, definitely.
Now, you didn't say anything to me previously when we've had conversations regarding you kind of falling into it a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I'm curious.
Oh, just hanging out with younger people, from my generation. You just assume that all Americans are fat and fucking stupid, etc. This is what was just spread.
Okay, and you're in you're in school currently. You're going to an art school in Colorado. And do you run into that? I mean, obviously, an art school shouldn't really have politics as a core. It shouldn't be related. Am I wrong in this?
A little bit. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people in the school feel the need to voice their opinion, teachers included. This, the project they're talking about, art-wise, has nothing to do with politics, but they'll find some way to tie it in.
Do you have any examples for me? Anything at all? I'm curious.
Oh, we're working on animatics. In my, I can't even remember the name of the class. It's an older guy, salt and pepper hair, but you just start ranting about Trump out of fucking nowhere, man.
saying things like what?
Just making like jive jokes about him. Just
jive jokes.
Jive.
Did you say jive joke? I think that's racist.
It might be.
Said jibe.
But I just don't know what his problem is. These people are obsessed.
They are obsessed. It gives them a reason for living. It makes them feel... Human beings need more than just food, water, and shelter. They need a reason to be. They need to feel loved, or that they are listened to, and that what they do matters. And a lot of that has manifested itself, especially amongst the millennials, the poorly educated. I don't care how many of them have college degrees. Those college degrees are throwaway. They're absolute crap these days. If you're hiring somebody with a college degree, you need to look thrice at it.
Well, if they come from STEM, then they're still okay. Although there is an assault currently happening on STEM too.
Shirtgate.
Yeah, I'm
Remember
honestly
that?
God. Yeah, how could I forget? Poor guy. He never should have apologized. He did nothing wrong.
I think he was just scared. I think he wanted to just go about his life and continue. I thought he was going to be the face that got to tell the world that humanity has finally done something no one's ever done before. We landed a man-made object intentionally on an asteroid, and people went, yeah, but your shirt. Oh, Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me?
Well, you gotta have priorities.
Oh, man. Anyone have anything else to add on colleges being more crap than they used to be, which is really the takeaway from this?
You know, I gotta say, I'm surprised that my school, you know, the students themselves are a bit more conservative. It's the professors themselves that are the liberals.
Well, it's the professors themselves who have the goal and the drive to indoctrinate students. That's half the purpose of what they are doing at this point. If I had anything to say, I would say to anyone who is going into college, or to anyone who has children who are nearing that age, you make sure that your children understand before going into class exactly what cultural Marxism is, exactly what the Frankfurt School is, and understand what happens as a result.
Well, yeah, if you're dealing with your own children, you need to make sure that they are guarded against any kind of ideological push. If your school is taking down their American flags, you know, you got a kid in elementary school, I know Mr. Refooge, you've got one younger kid. If they are celebrating foreign holidays and pushing, not as an option to take a foreign language such as Spanish, but actually making it more or less mandatory in school and issuing things in that language, that's ridiculous. People think in their language. People identify with a certain level of thought. What is the name of that? Do you remember? There is a series of studies done that led to the understanding that individuals learn to think a very particular way because of their primary language, the language of the region. And it causes a severe separation, a dichotomy with people who speak other languages. It can make you think differently.
It's the Worf hypothesis.
Is it Worf? Like Lieutenant Worf from Star Trek? Or Worf, like Worf
WHORF.
Okay, yeah, basically. Yeah, and I think there's some merit there. And I think it itself merits considerably more study. But if this is what's happening to your kids, don't pull them out, don't homeschool them unless you really have a lot of time and you make sure that they get a proper education diploma.
Well, I don't think you should pull them out. And in fact, I think that they should be exposed to this, because
I was just saying, don't unless you have to.
Well, no, do it on purpose, but make sure that they know before they're exposed to it exactly what it is that they're looking at. Because the problem with this little monster is it likes to dress up in sheep's clothing and pretend that it's something completely different from what it is. And it's not until you're so fully indoctrinated that you can't look back that they begin to give you the hints of, well, maybe by any means necessary is acceptable. Berkeley.
Yeah, well, Berkeley isn't alone in that when it comes to major universities. And it is a sad state of affairs when someone like myself, or someone like freaking Janine here, have a problem with academia. I am a huge fan of learning. I consider myself an intellectual, highly educated. She does as well.
My whole family is teachers.
No. And we go and we look at what they have done through regulations, through policies, and through simple indoctrination and ideological push, and it's despair. They are destroying the future of all mankind because brown people are important. Not people are important. Not Americans are important. Not the future is important, but specifically people who are not white are important. That's what this all boils down to. They matter more. They need to be given special everything, which is belittling and rude.
Well, actually, I want to disagree with something you said. You said the future is not important. I would argue that overarching this whole idea is the future is the only thing that's important. While they claim to protect brown people, if you look at the impact of their policies, it's actually very harmful to the groups they claim to be protecting. And that's because in their minds, once the transition is completed, once, you know, socialism or Marxism or whatever the end goal is on that side has been reached, everything will be perfect and all the cost, all the life, all the suffering will have been worth it. But the thing is, we're never going to get there. And let's hope to God we never do. And I'm an atheist for that matter.
You know, I agree with what you said, but I can't recant my point. And the reason I can't is because if you understood anything about human history and human present, then you would not be making that kind of push for the future. It's insanity. Socialism can only, like I've told one of our regular visitors, who I'm not going to name currently, he is a person who likes the idea of socialism very much, a big Bernie Sanders supporter. Socialism can work. Socialism works perfectly fine in your monkey sphere, i.e. 150 people or less. It can work.
Well, not up to 200 on the high end.
Yeah, perhaps. It can work in a very small community, i.e. a small tribe that is moving around picking berries from the bushes, and they have to distribute it so that everyone gets enough so that they can continue. Once you reach even 500 people, you better start being more towards a capitalistic society. Once you reach 1 million people, if you haven't had a solid capitalistic founding, you will not survive. Socialism can only work in a high population density, i.e. Earth, or even the United States, or even just Rhode Island by itself, in the Star Trek universe, when everything's already taken care of. You've got matter fabricators and nanotech, and there's no reason for anyone to worry about goods and services and production, and instead it's about people finding a higher calling for themselves. That's the only time it could work. It just can't work with modern technology and modern civilization. It goes against the very basic nature of humanity, unless all of it's taken away from you from robotics and from tech.
It goes against the nature of justice.
You might have to explain that one.
With capitalism, there are, of course, some flaws. However, one of the greatest things about it is the emphasis on justice. You get what you earn. You get what you deserve, good or bad. You made the decision, you took the risk, and you get to reap the reward. With socialism, the opposite is true. You don't get what you earned, and you also don't pay for what you did wrong.
Well, yes and no. I mean, obviously in the Star Trek universe, they still have police and...
Well, yeah, but in the Star Trek universe, you don't have to steal from other people in order to make your vision true.
Yeah, that was my ultimate point. I generally agree with you. Okay, I see where you're coming from. Mr. Refooge, you got anything you want to add? We've been stealing the microphone from you quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, not too much. I mean, you guys pretty nailed it on the head there.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next article. Let me go ahead and bring that up to the big screen here for everyone to enjoy, because it's always nothing but fun. Now, freaking Janine here is the one who sent me this, and in all fairness, I decided this one should be entirely live. I haven't gone through it. She's gone through it. I know,
Not
Mr.
very well.
Fuji, I sent you a list. Did you go through this? The last one, Bias in Astronomy.
Oh, I did not.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to. Okay, so I've got the article up here, and I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to you, freaking Janine. Why don't you give me a little synopsis here?
Well, basically, this person who wrote the article is unhappy, and they're unhappy because women of color are being discriminated against in science. And how do we know this? Well,
What's
because
that
they
level?
feel like they're being discriminated against, at least according to a non-randomly selected sample that they chose based on their feelings of discrimination.
So you're saying that their study is already flawed because they didn't do a random sampling of a high number. They chose individuals who wanted to respond to feeling put upon.
Yes. This was basically a bitch fest. They just called it a study.
Okay, this is one of the problems that we also have with modern academia, going back to a previous note. 95% of the studies that you hear or you see in news are either horribly misconstrued by the news or are completely done inaccurately. The whole idea is to get a real idea. If you go into a daycare and you've got 50 kids in there, and you want to know how many of them are happy with the juice boxes they get. I know this sounds ridiculous, and I am being intentionally a little bit rude. You don't say, if you're angry about the juice boxes you get, come over here and let me interview you. You ask random number, or all of them in this case, because there's so few of them in this particular instance, and you do that kind of mathematical push. You grab only that information. It's nothing more. And what they did is they found all the women of color in astronomy that were angry about their juice boxes, and that's what they put up. They said, this is an example, that this is a good representation of the entire country.
So it actually gets a little bit worse.
Okay.
Because there are actually so few women in science and they couldn't get a large enough sample size, just doing a survey of scientists from sources like the AAS, Division for Planetary Sciences.
Do you know what that stands for, by the way, the triple AS?
I think.
You broke up a little bit there. Could you repeat that, please? You're not sure. Okay.
No, I think it's either American Association of or American Astronomy. Either way, one of the big major official associations.
Probably should have looked this up first. It's not an organization that comes up very often. Okay, please.
Well,
please.
Either way,
Yeah.
they couldn't get enough female scientists from that source where they got, their men. So they extended the search into the Women in Astronomy blog and American Astronomical Society for Women newsletter.
You mean essentially not necessarily scientists, but enthusiasts?
Yes, some of these people. And you're looking at, even if they are scientists, you're looking at a sample group, a population that is already going to be heavily biased by default.
Because they were chosen for being biased?
Because they were chosen for being women.
Yeah, but if the goal is to determine women's feelings in a particular field, you would specifically ask women. I think that much is fair, is it not?
Here's the thing. It would be fair except for how they conducted the rest of the study. They tried to include men. They did include men, but all of the men that they included came from more official organizations. They only included women from blogs and non-official organizations. So the disparity only occurs on one side.
Okay, so men are
of
actually
things.
included in this 447 astronomers I'm going to go and highlight here. Is that what you're saying? Men are included?
Yep.
Wow. All right, so what their findings were is that women of color felt unsafe 40% of the time due to gender. Now, so why does women of color have anything to do with gender?
There's a bit of a hang-up there. Okay, so it's according to intersectionality. Women of color, whether you're...
I didn't think of it that way. You please continue. I should have interrupted.
According to intersectionality, women of color are at a double disadvantage because not only are they not white, which is basically the bad thing in our society, which is not true, but that's what they hold, but they're also women, which is the other bad thing, because patriarchy, the ghost of all things be evil in the world. In addition to that, they also have a weird hang-up with women of color being misgendered or gendered appropriately. So there's a lot of neuroticism and tension tied up around sexuality and gender in that group already.
Oh, they're idiots. Okay.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Let me tell you something. I'm a huge fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson. He happens to be a man who is not white.
Oh my God.
He is. Now, let me tell you something additional, and something I never thought of until this moment. If for some reason Neil deGrasse Tyson felt uncomfortable in his tweed jacket and his really awesome ties, and wanted to be a woman, and he went through transition, went through sex reassignment surgery and all that, if he didn't make a big deal out of it, if he wasn't running around saying, look how progressive I am, look how awesome I am, I'm a woman now, that makes me special, but instead just kept doing his good work and trying to spread science and really the spiritual success of Carl Sagan, if he came out and just kept doing, I don't care that he is gone through any of this. That's his goddamn private business. The moment he makes it a deal, an issue, then yeah, of course I'm going to criticize Sean, just as the way I've publicly criticized Bill Nye's very existence. I guess my point is, most scientists do not care if you're a woman. They do not care if you are black. They do not care if you're Latino or Latina.
They care if you can get the job done. That's what they care about.
Yeah. Is there any merit to your work?
Exactly. And are you an honest person with your work? Have you falsified anything? That's another big one too. But the big thing here is, I guess the take home is, they definitely, these researchers here, the authors here definitely did measure something. They measured the number of women who wanted to complain. Hypersensitivity.
Well put. They nailed that much. Is there anything that we can actually take away from this that's even remotely useful? Like, yeah, you know what? Here's something we can take away that's useful. They're saying 40%. They're not. Do they break down the number of women respondents at all?
Not in this article. I didn't actually look at the study itself.
Because 40% could be like 40% of 8. You know, that's not helping me very much. You need to know I need to know how many male versus female respondents. Here, I guess, is a takeaway that we can't have. A woman of color, okay, that has a chip on their shoulder and has been taught that white people bad or out to get them, and so they should feel unsafe, because that is a takeaway. I think it's fair. Still got a STEM degree and still are working in these fields. I realize some of them are enthusiasts. Some of them, are in these little organizations.
Well, maybe. May not be. Who knows?
Okay, well, yeah, without more information, let's pretend that they're all actually in STEM. They all actually have, at the very least, master's degrees, if not their doctorates. Okay? The takeaway is they still got there. They're doing, hopefully, great work.
Well, considering the fact that apparently they're skipping field work, my guess is probably not. Which is most likely why they're also complaining, because it's their only path to prominence.
I need you to quantify that. What do you mean by skipping field work? Yeah, I don't see anything
18% of women of color and 12% of white women reported that they'd skipped field work, class, or professional events because they seemed unsafe. You can't skip that shit, guys. It's kind of important.
How do you skip field work and become an astronomer?
They fire you?
Feel free to jump in at any point, Mr. Refooge.
Or you falsify data. Now, I'm not saying that they necessarily do, but I'm saying that's an increased likelihood that you would, because you didn't have time to do it, and you didn't go to the place to do it.
A little bit of background. That you're working on your doctorate. You're about to enter that.
Well, I'm finishing my master's degree. My ambition is to complete my doctorate, but I have not yet been accepted.
Okay, but you submitted all that, or you are in the process of submitting it. That's where you're going with, and this is the second degree you will be holding.
Yes.
Okay, you already hold 2 degrees essentially, or at least you will by the end of the year. Is my understanding.
Yes.
Okay, now I went through the trouble of learning everything I possibly could about religion over and over again. I've read the Quran a multitude of times. Of course, the Bible, including the Jeffersonian and the classical King James. I have studied African religions. God help you if you ever do. They're really surprisingly boring. I expected them to be fun. They're not. Greek mythology, the Roman transitions of multiple religious groups, including the old pagan cults, which are fascinating in and of themselves because of their own merging and contortion. Yeah, having a lot of fun with that. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I can't hear you. And I consider myself learned enough on all this. Alright? These people fall into every ideological category from these ancient religions, ideologies, and mythos. They're insane. They have no idea what they're talking about. They base everything on feeling. They base everything on emotion, on context within a very, very small subgroup that is being told very particular things and not thinking outside the box. So I'm here to tell you that as far as these women go that said, I don't feel safe. Now, I would have to see the study. Okay, I would have to see how they worded everything. I would have to see... I mean, let's go to the published journal link that they've got. It's long. It's an abstract. Wow. All 4 authors, by the way, are female. Wow.
Well, of course, they have to have some sort of credibility.
Oh, actually, that wasn't the way I was looking at it. The way I was looking at it is they managed to publish an article. I don't know whether or not it's peer-reviewed at this point. But look at all these women that are put upon so badly that they get massive recognition. Fuck you. Just really, there's no sanity here. Obviously, the study is entirely flawed. It just reminds me of the whole wage gap arguments and things along those lines. Mr. Refooge, you've been really quiet. I'm starting to wonder whether or not you fell asleep with all that Colorado marijuana.
Oh, no. Not yet. Definitely trying to work on that.
I don't think we're allowed to actually discuss pot in a YouTube stream.
Probably not. It wouldn't surprise me. No, I've just been soaking it in, listening to you guys.
Soaking it in?
Oh, yeah. Soaking it right in.
Hey, I'm not paying you to not say anything.
Getting paid?
Well, actually, I'm not paying you. That was a blanket statement. We were discussing this a little bit coming into this. I had not obviously read the article, but we go back through history of women scientists, specifically when we had exited the Enlightenment era. Okay, some of the big names in science, they're typically men, and men think very differently from women. We have more. How would you put this? Critical thinking skills seem to be a little bit easier for men, and in part because of the amygdala, because of emotional change.
Well, there are a few differences in the brains of men and women.
Those men's.
You're going to have, on average, a larger parietal lobe, which keys them to movement, which keys them to spatial reasoning. This is part of the reason that men, when they're young boys, like playing with cars, like running around, like being rambunctious, because they need to move. It's in their brain to move. Tomboys, the girls who, as young children, are a little more masculine, also tend to have, on average, a little bit larger than the normal woman. Now, this is partly the result of testosterone. You also have structures in the brain like the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which in women is, on average, larger. The limbic system in women, on average, is larger. We feel more emotion, and because of the distribution of white matter in our brains, we actually also feel these emotions for a longer period of time than men do. We think more quickly because of that white matter, but men, by contrast, have more gray matter, which is the actual neuron bodies. It's a balance. It's a give and take. No one is superior. We've each evolved for our own niche.
Okay. My primary point is that males, historically, have been in a position for scientific study for a multitude of reasons, and part of it is biological.
Yes.
Okay. Subsequent to that, of course, we've got things like women typically being caretakers. It's far easier if you're going to breed, have kids, to have someone that's going to take care of them at home. However, I wanted to point out an exceptional female example in a time frame which I believe some stupid bastards call women chattel, were during this time frame. They were essentially slaves. And that would be 1903. Marie Curie, who shared the Nobel Prize in Physics with her husband. I believe she also won the Nobel Prize a few years later with chemistry. She is most famous for her discovery of how radiation works, which of course is what ultimately killed her. You know, tough, really. I don't have anything positive or negative to say about that. That is a sacrifice for all humanity, and you know, kudos to her. Now, the story goes at the university in which she was achieving these incredible feats. A couple of male scientists attempted to discredit and simultaneously steal her work. She fought back. Now, they didn't do it because she was female. They did it because they were in cahoots, and she was a much better rival. She had already succeeded where they had failed. She won 2 Nobel Prizes at the turn of the 20th century. Quit telling me that women were not respected or not special. Women were not expected to work in these kinds of fields. It was a surprise to everyone. Statistically speaking, a male would expect a woman to be working out of her home, to be taking care of the kids, to be doing things like that. Of course, because that was extremely commonplace. It wasn't an absolute necessity. But that's the way it was. Am I missing something?
No, you've basically hit the nail on the head. It's not that men or scientists or anything like that or anyone like that thinks that women are less capable. It's that generally speaking, women just don't have the desire. I mean, if you look at the very high earning, high GDP in nations of the European North, for example, where you have a high degree of social mobility and very egalitarian ideals, you actually still see very specific gender segregation in roles. And it's because when given the choice, women choose, in general, different roles than men. We have different priorities.
Yeah, and that's been the major argument against the wage gap. Once you factor in women taking time off to raise families from illnesses, which unfortunately women have more physical issues than men on any given day statistically. And of course, women's simple desire, these fields are completely open. They're completely available. You're not going to go to your college that deals in physics or deals in astronomy or deals in chemistry or deals in engineering. You're not going to walk in there as a woman and say, I would like to pursue a degree in this particular field. You're not going to have a whole bunch of men holding their bellies, chain smoking cigars, and laughing their asses off while twirling their mustaches saying, no, you be female, that ain't going to happen. That's not a thing. That wasn't a thing in the 1970s. That wasn't a thing in the 1950s. That wasn't a thing in the early 1900s. It wasn't a goddamn thing. You can, by all means. You may have the outliers, people that are going to be absolute dicks, but hey, can you do the job? If you can prove yourself, fine. If you can't, get the hell out. And the same thing, men are very much a... what is the phrase? Something eat something world? What am I thinking of?
You lost me.
You know, man eat man, animal eat man.
Dog eat dog?
Dog eat dog. That's what... Wow. It's very much a dog eat dog world amongst men. Men are aggressive, and they will tell each other to fuck off if you are failing in any regard. You should watch Men at Work. If you've got nothing but a group of guys working, it forms a hierarchy, and the guy who is doing the least amount of work or is the least effective is certainly the one that everyone picks on. And a woman is going to suffer exactly the same consequences coming in. She's got to be better. She doesn't have to be better than the men, period, just not the lowest branch on the tree for everyone to hang from. Am I... Am I missing something? Am I saying
No,
wrong?
no, I think you've nailed it.
I'm not trying to come off as sexist in any way, shape, or form, although I am, because women and men are different.
It's honest.
Yeah. I don't know how else to put it. You know, I've been trying to really wrap my head around a lot of the insanity we deal with on a daily basis. And it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. Yeah, sorry about the dead air time. We're communicating a little bit over here. The left, in a nutshell, to me, to put it as succinctly as possible, is two things. First, anything they accuse anyone of, they themselves are guilty of. Now, I know this is... do you know what I'm talking about as far as this theory goes, or this specific teaching where it's part of leftist, even Marxist indoctrination, to always refuse, deny, and accuse?
Oh yeah, you're talking about rules for radicals.
Okay, do you know where that comes from, by any chance, off the top of your head?
Saul Alinsky.
What is this exactly? It sounds familiar, but I don't. If I don't have stuff in front of me, I get all over the place.
Well, it's a book that everyone should read. It helps to understand a little bit about strategy in terms of arguments and social change. Saul Alinsky, if I'm remembering correctly, and I should probably look this up before I put my foot in my mouth, I think he was someone that Hillary Clinton admired. And
I've heard that, actually. That rings a bell.
He wrote this book, Rules for Radicals, which basically is a how-to manual for social change for dummies, kind of.
Yeah, even if you're unfamiliar with his writings, his teachings, for lack of a better word, it should seem incredibly obvious to you what is going on. These are people who say, everyone's racist, you people are horrible, all the conservative-minded are bad people, right? While simultaneously calling for segregation and calling for white people to give money away to other people because they are somehow oppressed, even though they're given exactly the same legal stature as us evil white people. And yeah, I'm mostly white. A little bit of that Indian blood, which means I can go ahead and say horrible things about the Native Americans because I think it's funny. But they make those kinds of accusations. Whenever they say anyone's sexist, they're saying, you're sexist, you don't make equity a thing in your business, your college. You don't hire or fire or enroll or disenroll people based on their sex, not based on their gender. There is no purpose to that. That is sexist. Equity, of course, is trying to find an absolute equilibrium. Their idea of equity is, of course, a 50-50%, which is funny because women are actually 51% of the world population, as well as, I believe, the United States population. But their idea is that there needs to be an even split. You do not... You've got a business. I don't go, hey, there's a woman, I should hire a woman because I need women, because it's important to have women. Same thing for man. Can you do the job? Yes or no? It's like a fucking flow chart.
Well, actually, having that 50-50 split is, if anything, an indication of authoritarian social engineering, because it has to be. It's completely unnatural.
Quantify.
Well, I'll qualify.
Yes, that. I've been drinking, people. Go ahead.
Well, it's very unnatural in almost any field, science or otherwise, to get a 50-50 split in terms of gender in men and women. It's just not going to happen because of the different priorities and the different desires and ideals that we have. For example, you're never going to have 50% female chemists and 50% male chemists. You're always going to have a male-oriented chemistry, or male-dominated, rather, chemistry field, just as nursing is predominantly female and is likely going to stay that way.
Because of the critical thinking side, or the logistical side, the rational side versus the caring side. Is that what you are implying?
I would say more analytical versus interpersonal.
So exactly what I said. Just
no.
More what?
It's a little different from what you said. I mean, both are capable of critical thinking. It has nothing to do with critical thinking ability so much as analysis of incoming data and
I'm not saying,
information.
this is something I do have to go ahead and spell out. I don't think women are incapable of critical thinking. I think women are less likely to engage in fields that require it. And I think that women are less able to hold on to rational mindset for a prolonged period of time as compared to men because of the emotional side of things. Women have a wider range of emotions. It's actually one of their strengths. This is not a weakness. This is a positive thing, but only positive in certain areas, where being highly rational for a longer period of time on average is a strength and a weakness simultaneously.
Well, it's more exhausting, I would say, and this, I would postulate that it's more exhausting for women to entirely remove emotions and their personal self from their work, which is why you see a lot of women going into teaching, into nursing, into things where a lot of their personal self is involved in their work. A lot of men are a little bit more easily able to remove that part of themselves because they more identify as being their work. In any case, the only way to get an even split is to do two things. One, force people in the field who are successful and qualified to quit to make room for the second thing, which is to force people who don't want to do the work to do the work.
Mr. Refooge, we haven't heard from you much this evening. Gotta ask you, how many emotions do men have?
Like, does hunger count as an emotion?
No.
Okay, then like 2.
Yeah. What are those two?
Angry and more anger.
I would say angry and not angry. I mean, anger itself is an emotion. There are tiers of anger. There's shut up, I hate you, and there's I'll kill you. And then there's not angry, which is pretty much just the default state. Not even the default. The I'm calm enough to focus state. Is it fair to say?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Of course, we can feel happiness, we can feel joy, but there are not a lot of times, I think, in a man's life where he feels serious levels of joy and happiness. I don't think it's that easy for us.
Weird.
It definitely isn't.
Women, of course, have a much wider range of emotions, which keeps our society partially in check. It keeps a human tint on things where men can start looking at things rather analytical. How do you think that a large-ish group of people were able to justify the eradication of Jews in Nazi Germany? There was a justification for it in their minds. It went down to an erroneous but still rationalized frame of mind. You aren't going to get exactly that with women. There's going to be a heck of a lot more infighting, pushing to such an extreme degree. Is that not fair to say?
100%.
Well, it depends on exactly the function. I mean, if you have an office full of women, then yeah. But if you're talking,
What do you mean by that?
well, if you have an office full of women who are loosely coordinated but also competing with one another, then you're going to have a lot of what you just described, because they're not generally in like the office cubicle setting. They're not high-level professionals. But once you reach a more high-level professional state, then you don't see that so much. Not at all.
Okay. Wars have been fought for eons. From monkey men, including myself here. Cyber Shark, what? What are you looking at? I don't think it's anything like that. Wars have been fought for the most trivial reasons, justified and rationalized. Wars have been avoided for emotional reasons. For won't somebody think of the victims? Won't somebody think of the collateral damage?
Well, yeah, but I think that that's more of a convenient use of that, given the context and goals of the people in power at the time. I mean, that same argument has been used to start wars, too.
Yeah, but my argument is male versus female thinking in that context.
No, even then, I would say. I mean, if you look at the great female leaders over history, I mean, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mary, Queen of Scots, Queens of France, you have some of the bloodiest, most violent reigns, and it's partly because that mentality, when we think of the women, drives people forward to do what the women want, essentially.
Yeah, there's that argument, but if we're going to go down that path, you can also make the argument that these women felt that they needed to be bloodier and more vicious in order to appeal to the largely male dominated higher level power structures that were going on.
Maybe so, but
especially in the case of Catherine. Russia.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Well, sometimes, yeah, that might be the case, but I don't think that it necessarily always is. I mean, yes, Russia is one thing, and she did have to be bloody at the start. She had to be cunning and so much more, but if you look at other places like England, you don't have... Yes, you have the tradition of male kings, and Queen Elizabeth herself was following on the tail of her father and her older sister, the half-sister. But, and the environment at that time was that British queens led to bloodshed. That was the attitude going in, because that had been the case up to that point. She kind of paved the way for future British queens who are now seen as a matter of course. I mean, by the time Queen Victoria came around, it was like, oh yeah, she's the queen, Queen Mum.
Now, I'm not trying to give any special credence to the leftist concept that there's some sort of special power structure amongst men, but when men are the majority, when they are the ones that are pushing forward, when they are the ones that are not in the households, because they're not the ones that have to raise children, just as it was in our ancient beginnings of our species, then there is an expectation that they're going to have. There's a certain way of thinking. That much is true.
Well, yeah.
All right. We're going to go and kill on the stream a little bit. I want to give you two the final word on everything we've discussed. You want to tell George Lopez what you think. You want to tell Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton, for that matter. We didn't even bring this up, but something was popping up a heck of a lot here. Was the G20 summit Ivanka Trump?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, she sat in Donald Trump's seat for the G20 summit meeting for apparently a matter of minutes. I don't have an exact time frame. And she was heavily criticized for doing so. Donald Trump was heavily criticized for doing so. Chelsea Clinton came out of the woodwork to go ahead and say, well, my parents would never have thought of such a thing. But then again, Chelsea Clinton, when her father was president, would have been invited to G20 summits. She was at best 20 years old at the end of his term. So, what the hell were you talking about? At any rate, I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there because it pisses me right off.
Don't they just lash out at that family about anything? I mean, the man eats McDonald's. Oh, is he too fucking rich for that?
Well, actually, are you talking about Clinton?
No, I'm talking about Trump.
Bill Clinton used to jog from the White House to a local McDonald's, apparently playing the saxophone all the way. So.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, and I haven't seen him criticize him for what he's been consuming, but it wouldn't surprise me very much. The point is, Ivanka Trump is an official advisor to the White House, for better or for worse. That is her position. She has every right to occupy that seat for a short period of time in order to represent the United States. I don't know what you people are complaining about. Also, going back to the male-female thing, feminism, ho? I mean, you've got a woman sitting in the seat of the presidency for the United States representing our country at the G20 summit, and you're going to complain about it.
Yeah,
well, it's not the one they want.
The left to the leftists. You know you're being contrarian when even Angela Merkel tells you you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, she actually had no problem with it whatsoever, and of course the G20 summit was hosted in Hamburg, Germany, Angela Merkel's territory. So yeah, she's like, it's fine. I don't see what the big deal is. Paraphrasing, of course. I don't get it. Anyway, you two go ahead and take it away.
Well, it's been a pleasure being on here. I hope to come back soon. I think that we had a lot of really interesting discussions, and I look forward to the next one.
Oh, me as well. This conversation's been great.
Yeah, while you sit there and play a game, I can hear the clicking in the background.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe someone will even watch us.
Very, very likely. All future streams I hope to take place Friday night. Does that work for you? Do you think that's going to be good going forward? Okay. In the future, I think we're going to try to do all at Friday night, hopefully around 9:30 p.m. That is Mountain Standard Time. That is, what is that, Central? It's 10 Central. 11 Eastern. Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everyone, for listening, watching. You get the idea, and I'm going to go bang some rocks together.